Hey girls, so I will not be there today. There should be a sub there. I'm on campus, but I'm out for planning some really good lessons for you guys. So, like we've done in the past, we're going to go through the slides today. But first, I'm going to go through everything that is on the agenda and kind of walk you through what you should do first, second, third, and then what is expected of you for the class period. If you don't finish some things today, they will be for homework. Actually, no, forget that. We'll finish them on Friday. Okay, so if you go to the warm up, like you always should, as soon as you open the agenda, it just says, please read the agenda and watch the first video. Okay, that's this one. So hopefully you've already done that, which is why you clicked on this video. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the slides today. Then there is this Russia map activity. I know, another map of Russia. Um, but the geography of Russia is very important for you to understand because it really has an impact on where people in Russia live. And I know we've talked about that for almost every unit, but in Russia more so because of how cold it is in most places and how remote it is. So it really, really does have an impact on where people live. This video here, this YouTube video, let me see if I can't get a better pointer here. Okay, so this video here, no, that didn't work at all, did it? Is a video of me walking you through the Russia map, okay? And so when you're done, it's going to go in your interactive notebook, okay? If you don't have one, if you never had one because you came from Miss Islands and it either got lost or you never got one, there are some extras on my table, okay? But my girls should have theirs. So if you don't have it with you, then I need you to just get some loose leaf paper and put it on the loose leaf paper and then bring your notebook in on Friday and we'll just stick it in there. Okay, so the map is this one here, okay? So your finished product should look something like this. And this video is me taking you through how to cut it and how to glue it, because sometimes the cutting directions can be kind of tricky. And then the 5 themes of geography and renewable, non-renewable resources activity, that's this one, okay? And the same thing, this YouTube video right here will walk you through that one too, because this one here, the renewable, non-renewable one, is kind of tricky on how you cut it and fold it. So make sure you follow those directions, okay? These websites are going to give you the information you need to complete the 5 themes of geography. I really think the best one is this slide player one here. That's why I put this one is the best. These other 2 have some information, but there's one, I think it's this one here, that's missing one of the themes of geography. But they all 3 have really good information. The renewable, non-renewable resources, you can very quickly Google those. And so what I did was I drew, you can't see that, I drew pictures and then I explained what renewable, non-renewable resources are. You can use mine as a guide, but it's not completed. So don't just do what I did and submit your work, okay? And then the culture activity. This website right here is going to get you all the answers you need for the culture activity. And this YouTube video is of me showing you how to cut it and paste it into your notebook. You may not get to this one today, and that's okay. We will finish it on Friday. But again, it is here. So we have this and this, right? And then if you just turn the page, here's the culture activity. And you can dress it up. You can put culture of Russia up here. It would actually be helpful if you had a title. That way you know what it is. I just threw it on there, so I don't have a title. Okay. This link down here in the helpful websites or videos, I know it's a Wikipedia link, girls, and I know I preach to you over and over again that Wikipedia is awful, but I did do some fact checking. And if you click on this and you scroll down, actually, let's go ahead and just do it while we're sitting here. If you click on this and scroll down, it has a chart. Here it is, of all the 15 countries that were once under Soviet Union control. And what I love about this is it gives us quick demographics, we call it. So we have the name, the flag, the capital, the languages, the year they joined the Soviet Union, right? And then the year they got their independence, their population, and what they're now called after they were no longer part of the Soviet Union. So most of these are our current countries that are over near Russia, okay? There's more though, but you get the idea. And if you notice, there's a couple that broke off into like two, and there's more. Yeah, this one here broke off into three, and this one too. Okay, so it kind of just gives you an idea, going back to what we were talking about last week about the countries that were part of the Soviet Union. So I know it's Wikipedia, but it's okay. Awkward silence, waiting for my laptop. How are you girls today? I hope we're having a good day. It's Wednesday. 2 more days. I love these short weeks. I'm sure you guys do too. One thing I wanted to mention, there are three drop boxes for the notebook activities. So when you are done, why is this taking so long? When you are done, you're going to take pictures of your completed project. So like for the Russia map, you're going to take one picture of this, and then you're going to open it up and take a picture of that, okay? And then same thing with this one. You're going to take a picture like this, and then I don't need to see all of these, but at least open up one, and then open up your non-renewable resources. I set up the Dropbox to where you can turn in multiple pictures. Let me see if I can get this moving. I think Echo's a little slow this morning. Okay. So here are the three drop boxes that I was just talking about. So there is the Russia map, 5 themes of geography and renewable resources, and then the Russia culture activity that, again, you probably won't get to today. All right, so let's go into our slides for today. So we're talking about the culture of Russia today, and we're talking about how the Soviet Union really had an impact on the culture of Russia and where people lived. Now, the big takeaways of the information here. Number one, you don't need to know all of the different cultures in Russia. Okay. You also don't need to know the percentage and what language they speak. The biggest takeaway is that you need to understand how the leaders of the Soviet Union that we talked about, like Lenin, Joseph Stalin, okay, how they had a major impact on the culture of Russia. Remember how we talked about like they were Hitler number 1 and 2 and 3? Well, and you remember how Hitler had this perfect race idea. Well, they sort of did too, only it was more like a you respect me, you do what I say, and I won't kill you, right? So kind of like Hitler, but not in the same sense of if you're Jewish, you're out, right? This was more like if you agree with other people besides me, I'm going to kill you, okay? So let's take a look at this. This is population patterns. And when we talk about population patterns, we're talking about where most people of one culture live. Okay. And I know this is hard to see. You could probably Google it. Actually, no, you could Google it. But let's talk about how diverse Russia and the surrounding countries are now. So there's over 100 different ethnic groups. Okay. So very similar to Europe and how diverse they are. During the Soviet era, most of the people spoke Russian, right? Because again, that was that whole, if you speak any other language, then chances are you're against me. So I'll go and kill you, right? So now, though, today, only half of the population, and we're talking about all of Russia and its surrounding countries, speak Russian. Um, there's over 100 different languages now, from Slavic, Turkic, and believe it or not, a lot of them come from a Caucasian background. And I'm sure some of you have heard that word. It's kind of like a Eastern European word for white. Um, Now, a lot of them are called Slavic, the Slavs. It's the biggest population in that Russian area. A lot of them are Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians. 83% of them live in Russia. And remember, in Russia, where do most people live? Okay. We talked about not only do most people just live in near water, but they also live mostly in the western part closest to Europe. Because if you remember the geography of Russia, most of it is Siberia and it's tundra and it's cold and you can't do anything with the land, right? All right. So again, we're talking about a lot of ethnic diversity. This picture cracks me up. Um, there's a lot of Turkic people, and they're from. So you have the country of Turkey, but then you have a lot of surrounding little countries. So people from Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. Okay, most of them speak some form of the Turkic language, and most of them, believe it or not, are Muslim. And when we talked about Europe, this is where a lot of the Muslims migrated from, especially during the time of the Soviet Union. Because, again, if you speak out against the Soviet Union leader, then you're wrong. And so most Muslims did not believe in what the Soviet Union was doing. So a lot of them migrated from east in Russia to west to Europe. And then most of there's a lot of Uzbekistan, Uzbeks, and then Kazakhstan has like the smallest minority. And then a lot of the people speak Farsi, which is typically a language um, seen from the Muslim culture. And a lot of them are usually known to be in like Afghanistan in that area. So we can see how a migration plays an important factor in culture, right? This is a very diverse group of people, and they've come from all over Asia and Russia and even Northern Africa and have kind of settled their cultures in other locations. If we go, I'm going to jump to this map real quick. If you look on this, is it this map? No, sorry. Let me go to, I'm going to jump real quick to the map. Okay, it's not on here. But the Afghanistan is actually southeast of Russia. So you can see how these migration and immigration patterns really make an area diverse. Okay. Um, a lot of the Caucasian group, they're called Armenians, Georgians, and these people are from Azerbaijan. They have their own alphabet, their own language, and so does Georgia. Georgia, remember, it's not just a state, girls, it's also a country. And a lot of them have their own alphabet and language. They're mostly Christian. Let me move this up here. Those from Azerbaijan are mostly Muslim and speak Turkic, like a lot of the Muslims did that we just talked about. Okay, so this is a population distribution map, and if you were to Google image it, you'd probably find a bigger picture. 283 million people live in these areas. Russia has 147 million, and so most of them here are in this dark area. And again, look how empty it is up here. Because remember, girls, it's very close to the Arctic Circle. It's Siberia. Soil's awful. Okay. So yeah, just what I just talked about, the reason for the distribution. Okay. It's very important for you to understand. Yes, there are a ton of rivers here, but remember, it's so cold that the rivers are frozen most times of the year. So even unless you have the equipment to be ice fishing, you're not going to live there, and it's too cold. All right. History and government. We've already talked about the government at length, so I'm only really going to talk a little bit about this here. So part of Russia's history, again, it goes along with water, right? People settle near water, and that's where they built their towns. If we go back as far as the 800s, we're talking about the Vikings. Remember, Vikings had these gigantic ships, and of course, it makes sense that they're going to settle near water so that they can use their ships. Okay. They eventually adopted the language and converted to Christianity. And then we have in the 1200s, we have the Mongols who actually came from like Mongolia and China. They invaded parts of Russia, and a lot of people fled to Moscow, which is why Moscow has such a big population. All right. We talked a lot about the rulers, and I talked about Tsar, which is kind of like a king. But let's talk about Moscow, which is now the capital of Russia, and it's their most populated area. It's a religious and political center, and it's very close to Europe. So it's kind of, you could almost call it like a gateway into Russia. They call it a window to the West, right? Same concept. It's a window to the West and all of Europe. Okay, so I'm not going to get into a lot of this. Basically, understand that most people didn't really like the way the czars ran the country, the area. Some of them were really good, some of them not so good. Most of the peasants and workers lived in poverty. And then, as we talked about last week, Tsar Nicholas was overthrown, and then we start to see the Soviet era, right? The Bolsheviks that we talked about, the very ruthless group that came through and killed anyone who still believed in Tsar Nicholas, right? They believed in communism, like we talked about, in a communist society where everyone gets a bit of everything. And then you can't own anything. You can't privately own anything. Okay. And again, we talked about all of these later, so I'm not going to go into this. This is just here for you. This is essentially the same information that we talked about last week. Okay. And then once the Soviet Union was overthrown, and it becomes more of a democratic republic. Okay, so a lot of the Russians are Christian, mostly Eastern Orthodox, which is a form of Christianity. Some of them have their own church, right? There's an Orthodox church. Churches, if you think about them, the architecture is very Gothic in style. And then there's Islam. So most of them are either Christian, that Orthodox, or they are Muslim. Okay, and a lot of the countries that end in "stan," their religion is Muslim. So Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan. Okay, some of them practice Judaism, but not a lot, because if you remember when we talked about Europe, we talked about how they suffered a lot just because they were Jewish, and they finally found their home in Israel. And a lot of them fled Russia especially during the time of Hitler and during the time of communism, because communism was not supportive at all of the Jewish people. But believe it or not, today, excuse me, over 40% of the population in Russia don't identify with a religion. And so that leaves only about 60%. And I know that's majority, but when we're talking about religion, when we're talking about an area that's very deeply rooted in culture and remember religion as a part of culture, it's very shocking to see that more than 40% of the population doesn't identify with a religion. Okay, when we talk about education, think of the Soviet Union again. They were very distinct in how they taught in the schools. If you remember, we talked about how the Soviet Union banned books, and it was basically any book that was different from communism and spoke out against communism. So to see a book on the United States government and democracy, they wouldn't see anything like that. All they taught was in Russian. They promoted communism. They were very old school. And when I say old school, I mean like small books, pencils, chalkboards. They had no modern equipment, technology. And then you had to test to get into high school. So not everyone had a high school diploma. Okay, and then they only taught certain things based on where you lived. So if your area spoke a different language, the school would teach in that language and only that language. Okay, the arts. Okay, so when we talk about arts, we talk about sculptures, we talk about buildings, we talk about artwork, we talk about music. Okay, a lot of famous composers came from Russia. Tchaikovsky came from Russia. The Fabergé eggs, so like the picture here, they're these beautiful, intricate eggs. Also, the Minushka nesting dolls, the dolls that go inside of each other. Okay. During the Soviet Union, though, most people didn't have access to artwork and to music. But now they don't have any restrictions. They're allowed to enjoy whatever, floats their boat, so to speak. And, they like hockey. It's cold. So what else are they going to do, right? A lot of basketball players come from Russia. There's a lot of real urban areas. Think of like New York, but poor. Okay, so there's a lot of apartment buildings that are run down and multiple families live in one apartment. Um, the holidays and their celebrations, they incorporate some of the old traditions with new traditions, kind of like we do. They have May Day, which is a holiday for workers, kind of like our Labor Day, and they celebrate Christmas and Easter. But during the Soviet Union time, they couldn't celebrate. All right, so that is our very quick discussion on their culture. Again, big takeaways is to understand how migration really affect the culture of Russia and Southwestern Asia. So all of those STAN countries. Okay, these next few slides are pictures that are going to help you with your interactive notebook activities. Okay, so I would leave this open or just open up the slides, not the video, so that you can use the maps here. And then this one here, these two will help you with the map of Russia. This one will help you with the 5 themes of geography one, this one here. Okay, and then these two here, the non-renewable, renewable resources, will help you with that one. And then this is just another example of non-renewable, renewable resources. Okay, so if we were to go back to the agenda, of course it locked me out. Why wouldn't it? Okay, so just keep in mind, okay, start with this Russian map activity first, use the video to help you, and use the pictures to help you. So I would click on these slides to have them open so it can help you with this activity. Then work on the 5 themes of geography, renewable, non-renewable resources. If time runs out, don't start the culture activity one. Just leave it on the back table. We'll get to it on Friday. Once you're done the Russia map activity, go ahead, take a picture of it, submit it to this Dropbox. Okay, you should have no problem finishing that one. Then move on to the 5 themes of geography, renewable, non-renewable. Once you finish that one, submit it to the Dropbox. If you don't finish that one, put it in your notebook. Make sure your name is on your notebook, very visible somewhere, okay? And put it in the cubbies, the green cubbies, okay? We will finish it on Friday. Do not take it home for homework. Again, girls, do not take it home for homework, okay? I don't want you forgetting your stuff at home. If there are any questions, just email me, okay? And I will see you girls later, okay? Make sure you have agency. Make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. You can listen to music while you're working on your notebook stuff. Just make sure you have earbuds, okay? If you borrowed my earbuds, please put them back, okay? When you're doing these activities, you know that in the drawers, those plastic drawers, you will find scissors, you will find colored pencils, and you will find glue sticks. Please put them back when you are done with them, okay? Make sure you're respecting my supplies. If you notice things are out of whack, just do me a quick favor and kind of organize them and put them back in the drawers, okay? I will see you girls later.